Welcome to WHRO's Weekly Edition. I'm Doug Boynton, and again, we're back to highlight the week's news and stories happening across Hampton Roads. We've got some great stories this week. Virginia Democrats have momentum on their side after a new poll from Old Dominion University has gubernatorial candidate Abigail Spanberger overwhelmingly ahead in Hampton Roads. Norfolk International has closed a little-used runway to get ready for new cargo facilities, hangars, and other developments. And roughly 4,500 sailors aboard the USS Iwo Jima are headed to the Caribbean and South America as part of a buildup of U.S. forces in the region. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. Polls continue to favor Democrats in November's statewide election. This one comes from Old Dominion University. It shows Hampton Roads residents overwhelmingly backing Democrat Abigail Spanberger for governor. WHRO's Ryan Murphy reported the details.
48% of respondents to ODU's Life in Hampton Roads survey say they plan to vote for Spanberger in this year's gubernatorial election. That outpaces support for Republican Winsome Earl-Sears. Just 27% of respondents say they'll cast a ballot for her. In the state's delegate races, around half of respondents say they plan to vote for Democrats, compared to a quarter who say they support Republican candidates. The online survey of 718 Hampton Roads residents was conducted over 2 weeks in July. Ryan Murphy, WHRO News.
On the heels of that poll, Spanberger says she has agreed to take part in a statewide televised gubernatorial debate hosted by Wavy TV and Norfolk State University on October 9th. WHRO's Connor Worley brings us more.
It's the second debate she accepted after Republican Winsome Earl-Sears declined the People's Debate at Virginia State University. Spanberger's campaign says she's ready to outline her plans and contrast her vision with her opponents. Earl-Sears accepted, and Spanberger declined a debate sponsored by CNN. Spanberger said she wanted to give priority to Virginia broadcasters. Republican Attorney General Jason Miyares and Democratic challenger Jay Jones will debate in an October event sponsored by the Virginia State Bar. Connor Worley, WHRO News.
Virginia Beach will pay for and build a park at Rudy Loop and then hand it over to a nonprofit to manage. It's called a conservancy model, and we get the details from WHRO's Michelle Hankerson.
Parks and Recreation Director Michael Kirschman says the setup is used at flagship parks in other cities. It's called a conservancy model.
They would plan the programs, they get the sponsorships, they do the movie nights, they do the yoga in the park, they do the big events, they run the whole site, just like outsourcing operations at the sports center. Only this time to a nonprofit.
The city plans to raise $20 million in private money to support the $42 million project. The city will front the cost of the park from its tourism investment fund. Donated money will replenish the investment fund. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
Virginia Wesleyan University will soon have a new name. Next year, the school will become Baton University. WHRO's I-Ching Wang has more.
President Scott Miller says the name change reflects deep gratitude to the Batten family. The Battens made their fortune in media and have been major philanthropists in the region. Jane Batten has been involved with Virginia Wesleyan since 1978 and has served on its board of trustees.
We're no longer simply a university in Virginia. We're Virginia's innovative University of the Arts and Sciences.
Over the next year, the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art will open on the Virginia Beach campus. The university will launch a Chesapeake campus and fully integrate the Centera College of Health Sciences. I-Ching Wang, WHRO News.
We should mention Virginia Wesleyan President Scott Miller is a member of WHRO's governing board. He is not involved in editorial decisions. The Rappahannock Indian Tribe recently gathered with the community of donors, volunteers, federal agencies, conservationists, and local people who helped them obtain nearly 1,000 acres of ancestral lands high above the river that shares their name. Pamela D'Angelo reported the story for partner station WVTF.
This was a fight against bulldozers and New York investors who sought to flip the 964 wooded clifftop acres high above the Rappahannock River into a major golf resort and housing development. But those bulldozers prematurely began work. That led to mudslides into the river below and state fines. The New Yorkers put the land up for auction in 2022, and that's where this story begins.
It's a really nerve-wracking auction. I'm glad I wasn't the one doing the bidding.
That's Heather Richards with the Conservation Fund, which buys at-risk lands to preserve and protect. They bid for the former tribal lands that are the largest acreage and highest part of Fones Cliffs.
It was us and another bidder, and we knew we had a certain number that we could go to. And we got right up to that number before the other party stopped bidding. So we were able to win the bankruptcy auction, and it was both a moment of relief that I can't believe we just did that, but also a moment of, oh my God, now we have to actually do it and get it into the hands of the tribe.
They paid $8.1 million and held it for the tribe to buy. For the next 3 years, a large list of donors and other funding partners stepped up to help the tribe buy the land. Today, not far from the cliffs, Chief Ann Richardson brought some of them together on a boat tour of pristine marshes and ancestral lands on Minokan Bay and thanked them.
Today is a gathering of all of the friends and partners who our God has brought together to restore this magnificent place to our people so it can be protected and preserved for future generations.
And that includes neighboring property owners on the cliffs.
They're descendants of those early colonists. I just feel spiritually like we've come full circle to this place. Not just the tribe, but those families as well, and rejoining to protect this beautiful place. And I know that those relationships in colonial times weren't always adversarial. I know that we worked together at times and had relationships with those families. And so this is really just a restoration of what was.
The tribe will care for the property alongside the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The two already co-steward other properties along the cliffs. Here's Marcy Kapsch, who manages the Rappahannock River Valley National Wildlife Refuge and will work with the tribe.
We're going to be co-stewarding approximately 2,400 acres with the tribe, and the hope is to keep the integrity of the natural world, but in addition to develop hiking trails, interpretive signs that's going to honor both the tribal perspective of the landscape along with our sort of traditional talking about the animal and then the things it likes to eat and things like that.
Plans are underway for citizens of the Rappahannock to give guided kayak tours. Here's Assistant Chief Mark Fortune.
Hopefully by next summer or next fall. We're seriously working on it. We purchased about 16 kayaks. A lot of people have already been through training.
Chief Richardson said the work to heal the lands that have been logged and bulldozed has already begun by planting native trees. And Julie King, an anthropologist from St. Mary's College who works with the tribe, has already begun small excavations and has found indigenous pottery and a colonial trade bead. From Cat Point Lodge on Rappahannock lands, I'm Pamela D'Angelo.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, Dominion Energy's major price hike is awaiting approval from state regulators, but first, residents of several majority black communities in Chesapeake are continuing to fight a proposed natural gas project. WHRO's Catherine Hafner says they're concerned about its potential health impact.
Virginia Natural Gas plans to build a $90 million compressor station along South Military Highway at the nexus of two interstate pipelines. Gas Supply Director Ken Yagelski says it's needed to keep gas flowing during the coldest days of the year because of rising energy needs.
Every new installation adds more demand on the system, which draws down the pressure in the pipe.
But nearby residents worry the facility will threaten their health and safety, on top of other gas infrastructure that already runs through their neighborhoods. Here's Ethel Mitchell speaking to state regulators this week.
I appreciate energy reliability. However, it must not come at the cost of environmental racism.
City Council denied the project in June, but reversed course last month. Residents now want the state to deny final approval. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Norfolk International Airport closed a little-used runway to prepare for several new projects. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports that it includes new cargo facilities and hangars.
Closing Norfolk's Crosswind runway makes room for corporate hangars, a plane de-icing facility, an air cargo facility, and straightening out Robin Hood Road to improve airport access. Airport Vice President of Capital Projects, Jeff Bass, says it's not going to majorly impact operations. Less than 1% of Norfolk's traffic used the runway.
And that's a significant low number compared to the cost it is to maintain a runway.
The closure creates an opportunity to develop the off-airport land that has been kept clear for runway safety as well. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
4 more Filipino crew members from the Carnival Sunshine were detained and deported from Norfolk this week. WHRO's Ryan Murphy has the details.
Advocates say the latest action by U.S. Customs and Border Protection brings the number of cruise ship workers from the Sunshine deported to 28 this year. More than 100 have been taken off of cruise ships around the nation in that time. Aquilina Soriano Versosa with the Filipino Workers Center of Southern California says the workers are accused of involvement with child pornography without being presented evidence or charges, and then intimidated into signing deportation paperwork.
And we really think that this is a part of CBP trying to reach the quotas that is being put on them by the administration.
Officials with Customs and Border Protection declined to comment to WHRO when reached at the agency's Norfolk office. Ryan Murphy, WHRO News.
A now former Suffolk city official is accused of soliciting a minor. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports.
Patrick Macaluso was arrested for sex crimes last Thursday in Suffolk. He faces charges of sexual solicitation of a minor and solicitation of child porn from a 14-year-old boy. Macaluso was hired as an assistant city attorney for Suffolk in December 2022. The city fired him on Friday. Macaluso was booked into Western Tidewater Regional Jail. As of Friday, he was awaiting extradition to Harford County, Maryland, northeast of Baltimore, according to Harford County Sheriff PIO Liz Lotz. Suffolk communication officials say the city is fully cooperating with Harford County's investigation. As it is ongoing, Lotz says no further information will be released. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
Millions of Americans enjoy bird watching, but relatively few spend time watching bugs. Dozens of them will gather in Virginia this weekend to compare notes and search for dragonflies. WVTF's Sandy Hausman reports on why those insects might warrant our attention.
Dragonflies are found around the world, any place where there's fresh water, like this pond, a lake, river, or stream. There are more than 3,000 species in various sizes and colors, and they're among the oldest animals on the planet.
These are things that have been around since well before the dinosaurs.
Ethan Tolman is a postdoc at Virginia Tech and a research associate at the American Museum of Natural History. He says dragonflies, which can grow to about 4 inches in length, are successful because they eat well.
They are actually the world's most efficient predators, successful over 90% of the time, and most mammals are well below 50%.
And they'll eat almost anything they can catch, including other dragonflies.
Some of the largest dragonflies have actually been documented eating hummingbirds.
One reason they're such great hunters is their skill in the air. Emily Lubke is a photographer on staff at the Piedmont Discovery Center. She joined another dragonfly enthusiast, Jim Childress, to identify more than 100 species in Albemarle County and 6 in Shenandoah National Park.
The state had documentation for 23 species, I think, when I started, and we have 114 species now for Albemarle County. In the park, we have 61.
And those creatures have an intense mating ritual that ensures the most aggressive males fertilize dragonfly eggs. Again, Ethan Tolman and Emily Lubke.
You'll oftentimes will see 2 dragonflies flying together. Sometimes they form this almost like heart.
They will stay flying in tandem where the male has clasped the female behind the head. But when they're done mating, sometimes they'll just stay hanging on and fly together as she lays her eggs.
These bugs are far sturdier than butterflies, and Tolman says they can live a long time.
In Australia, where there's a lot of drought and maybe not a lot of opportunities to eat food, there have been some suggestions that they can actually live as long as 20 years.
Lubke adds that dragonflies can be an important indicator of a healthy environment.
Some of them are very sensitive to changes in water quality. Talking about the nymph stage, right, that lives in the water. An absence of some species might indicate that there's a problem with the water.
Tolman notes, however, that some dragonflies have adapted well to our somewhat polluted urban centers.
Part of my research is on a species called the blue dasher dragonfly. You'll often find them at ponds, specifically in cities.
For more than a decade, Lubke has documented dozens of dragonfly species with her camera.
Lying on the ground with my macro lens and inches away from something that nobody can see when they walk by. And some people look concerned, like, is she okay?
Photos are shared with the Dragonfly Society of the Americas, and this Saturday, Lubke will show them to dozens of insect enthusiasts in Nelson County's Quarry Gardens at Schuyler, followed by a field trip to the Rockfish and James Rivers. Childress says the public is invited to join and to do their part to protect Virginia's dragonflies.
You have to know what you've got to be able to do that.
So if you see something interesting, Tolman adds, take a picture and upload it using an app like iNaturalist. Doing so could add to human knowledge of the natural world at a time when research dollars for science are in short supply. I'm Sandy Hausman.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
State regulators are considering whether to approve Dominion Energy's biggest rate hike in decades. WHRO's Catherine Hafner reports it's due in part from the power demands of data centers.
Dominion wants to raise electric bills by about 15% over the next 2 years. That's an extra $21 each month for the average customer. The utility says it needs more revenue because of surging demand from data centers and increased costs for labor and equipment. Spokesperson Aaron Ruby previously told WHRO that Dominion's rates are designed to make sure it can keep the lights on.
Every customer only pays for the power they use and the infrastructure that's necessary to deliver it.
But environmental groups argue residents are paying the price for power-hungry data centers. Dominion has proposed creating a separate rate class for data centers. They and other high-energy users would have to commit to paying for large amounts of electricity. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
The State Corporation Commission will hold a public hearing on Dominion's proposal on September 2nd in Richmond. The 4,500 Marines and sailors from the USS Iwo Jima are headed south as part of a buildup of U.S. forces in the Caribbean and South America. WHRO military reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
As first reported by CNN, WHRO confirmed that the USS Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group is headed to the Caribbean and South America, part of a show of force by the Trump administration. When they left Norfolk Thursday, Navy and Marine leaders said they were headed to 6th Fleet, which is Europe and Africa. Marine Colonel Tom Trimble says they're trained to be flexible.
Bottom line is we're deterring our enemies. We are reassuring our partners and allies. And when crisis comes up, we will respond to that crisis. And we're able to maneuver and be able to range all those areas that were required to respond to that crisis.
Typically not trained for drug interdiction, Marines were also recently dispatched to L.A. for crowd control. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
The Defense Department is tightening its grooming standards for facial hair. It will now be harder for troops to get exceptions to the daily shaving requirement. That new policy especially affects black men with a skin condition that makes shaving painful and potentially disfiguring. Carson Frame reports for the American Homefront Project.
When Derek Braxton joined the Air Force at 21, he'd never shaved in his life. He had a short beard that he'd get trimmed at the barber's. But on the first day of basic training, he willingly broke out a razor.
The next day, my face was just on fire. Just literally looked like the best way to always put it is a Crunch bar, one of the Nestle Crunch bars. I was like, whoa.
Braxton, who's speaking in a personal capacity and not on behalf of the Air Force, says he was sent to a military shaving clinic. He was told to try an electric razor, new shaving techniques, and a host of topical treatments.
Like, they will work for a little bit after you get shaving bumps. They would kind of help them go away, but they didn't necessarily fix the situation.
He was diagnosed with pseudofolliculitis barbae, or PFB, a chronic condition where hairs grow back into the skin and cause painful irritation after shaving. PFB is more common in Black men. Dr. Chris Adigan is a North Carolina dermatologist.
This particular disease affects individuals with tightly coiled hair. The body is processing the presence of that hair in the skin as a foreign body. So it generates a lot of inflammation, which creates that swelling and bump. That is that foreign body response to the person's own hair.
The Air Force gave Braxton a shaving waiver, a doctor-approved exception to the daily shaving requirement that can last from 90 days to 5 years. He keeps his beard within regulation at under a quarter inch. But even with that, as a young airman, he was asked to show his waiver as many as 7 times a day. He remembers an officer in one of his squadrons in 2014.
She came over and she looked at my face. She even touched my face to like feel my beard and all that stuff. She would come up to me and another airman that I worked with, and she would ask us every day, "Hey, do y'all have y'all shaving waivers?"
Now Braxton isn't sure if he'll be able to stay in the Air Force with a shaving waiver. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has launched a review of grooming standards, which Pentagon officials say is meant to restore discipline and uniformity. The Air Force says it's tightening the shaving waiver process, increasing medical oversight, and reserving long-term waivers only for the most severe PFB cases. The Army and Marine Corps also have made it harder to get shaving waivers, and now can kick out troops who can't shave. The Pentagon declined our request for an interview on the topic. But Kyle Bibby, a former Marine Corps infantry unit commander who oversaw troops with shaving waivers, says short beards don't affect service members' ability to fight.
And I can say that there's absolutely zero correlation between someone getting a no-shave chit and a military's ability to function and perform its duty.
Bibby is now the co-CEO of the Black Veterans Project. He sees the changes as part of a broader political message. Studies suggest that more than 45% of Black men in the military have PFB.
I think it's more about the politics of the Trump administration and their feeling about what the military should look like, and not in terms of beards, like racially and ethnically, than it is about combat readiness.
Joshua Nixon has had a shaving waiver since he joined the Air Force in 2011. Speaking in a personal capacity, he says the waiver process has left him burned out.
I think we have to look at, hey, if we are being this strict on this medical condition that majority affects this race, what are our intentions? Hey, are there hidden motives? I'm not saying that there are, but I would be lying to you if I said my mind didn't go there.
Nixon says the scrutiny feels like a barrier between him and the military he's devoted his whole adult life to serving. This is Carson Frame reporting.
This story was produced by the American Homefront Project, a public media collaboration that reports on American military life and veterans. You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Ryan Murphy, Nick McNamara, Catherine Hafner, I-Ching Wang, and Steve Walsh. WVTF's Pamela D'Angelo and Sandy Hausman. Also Carson Frame with the American Homefront Project, and thanks as always to Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed, and you can get news updates at WHRO.org, the WHRO smartphone app, and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton. Stay safe. Be well.